Well, we're well into summer now and the latest model rail magazine has arrived. This one is July 2024 and it's number 327 and the headline is Add a New Dimension. It's saying about taking an innovative approach to scenic composition. That sounds quite interesting. We've also got the usual reviews this month and it's highlighting the non-standard 9Fs in detail. This magazine comes in at £5.50 here in the UK. I get this through my Tesco Club Card points though, which works out to be a very good deal for me. So check that out if you're interested in getting this magazine. But in this video we'll check out what's inside this edition. So in a previous review of this magazine, I did get a comment asking if I could linger a bit longer on the adverts in this magazine. If that's something you'd be interested in doing, then let me know in the comments below this one. The magazine opens up with the editorial by George Dent as usual. In this one he's talking about the Class 25. It is a favourite British diesel of mine and I have a very prized Class 25 from Hornby that I've had for many years. George is always very busy in this magazine and I've said a few times that he should really get a holiday, especially now this is a July issue. So let's get him sent off to that beach resort and get him some well-deserved R&R. So opening the box highlights an upcoming review that they're going to be doing of somebody else's model railway. And this one is by George Murray. It looks like a 1950s layout, very industrial and gritty and grimy. It looks really good from this picture, a lot of weathering going on and a lot of detail. I like things like the bird here and the greenery looks really good as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one, but that's not in this issue. So let's see what else we've got. So we open up with some big news about Bachmann, a lot of stuff coming here. We've already seen announcements of this online, but we've got the NG7 Hunslets finalised up here. And also we've got the Class 25 that George mentioned in his editorial down here as well. These Desiros are finally due. This is an N gauge and these are something I think are really good. And it's got my favourite one here. This one that looks almost like it's camouflage colour. Up here it's also talking about the return of the Ginty and the 03 in 00 scale. And we have these vans as well. I'm not keen on these myself, but these might tempt you. Some breaking news here from Acura Scale, who have got some HDO and HDV hoppers coming soon. I'm sure they'll be up to usual Acura Scale standards. And finally on the Bachmann news, it's talking about the Mark 1s. Now I actually think that Acura Scale are also doing Mark 1s at the moment, so you're going to be spoilt for choice if Mark 1 coaches are your thing. Over the page we have this crane from EFE Rail, which is of course Bachmann. I thought that was the best thing that they released this summer, quite an interesting model. And they've also got the fish van and the Adams locomotive here as well, not anything to do with the Adams family. In the middle, they talk about the 042Ts from Dapol in 00 gauge. And also here they have a bit about Bachmann's Collectors Club wagons, which I think are actually really bad, but hey, you can get them here if you're part of the club. And down here, the Cavalix Class 60 causes a stir, it says. So this is saying it's on course for delivery in January 2025. So you've got a little bit of time to save up for this. It looks pretty cool so far. But if you're interested in this model, probably you need to get your orders in pretty quick. Some more Dapol news up here where we've got the Pacers coming in N gauge. The real one of this, obviously much hated. Here we've got a bit about the O gauge Helgen 48DS and should be available soon. It's O gauge locomotive, but it was only £199, which isn't too bad. And it's a great model to get started in O gauge if you're limited in space. And Dapol are also releasing these little steam locomotives as well in 00 gauge. Down here it's got about the very modern Class 88, which Dapol is also producing. And here it's talking about the smaller PCA tank wagon in N gauge from Revolution Trains. So you've got a bit of an offer coming in over here where you've got the Geoscenics offering this bundle where you get a free bottle of weathering solution if you buy the ballast setup. So if you're interested in that, check it out. And KMRC have got some exclusive wagons down here in different liveries. They're all kind of teeny tiny little plank wagons which aren't anything new, but the liveries on them are new, I guess. And Osborne have got some little figures in 00 scale. Some guys, it looks like they're playing bowls there, and some guys working very hard on the railway. On the next page, Modeloo gets a mention again. It's some more little figures from them. They're really producing quite a lot at the moment. Other manufacturers are available, but Modeloo does seem to be pretty good. And right beside it, Knock have got these figures and infrastructure that are available in TT gauge. So you are starting to see a lot more coming out for TT gauge these days. Down here, there's some new books that have come out. In the centre of the next page, Notch gets another mention with these civic sculpture models that you can get. Above it is a laser cut kit from Pico to make these kind of terraced houses. Could be quite interesting for a 60s, 70s or 80s layout. And Pico also gets a mention up here with their Y turnout in 00 gauge. You don't often see much about brass model railways stuff these days, but here's two new locomotives that are coming out from Brass Masters, and you can get them in 00 EM or P4 gauge. And finally, we've got a little dune buggy down here. This is from Bush, coming in at $49.50. Quite a lot of money for a little car in HO scale, but it'll certainly be very eye-catching. They always have an "and finally" on this page where they kind of put something quite amusing. This time they've got a big boy on a British branch line, which does look quite cool. Next we have some information about rail railways, but I'm on now to the staff show and tell. So finally Dave has finished his Mark III coaches, which he's been working on for some time now. They look pretty good, he's done a very good job of those, and I'm so glad he's actually finally finished them as well. Down here we've got a piece by Peter Marriott. He's talking about little figures that you can get pre-painted and how you can dull them down to look a bit more realistic than the bright colours from the factories. On this side, George Dent is busy with his Class 70 from Bachmann, where he's given it some weathering, but apparently it's gone wrong and it took off some numbers. And he hasn't quite finished this yet. He's not sure whether to renumber it or add some other transfers to it. He does ask for suggestions up here, but what I like about this feature is it proves that not always things go to plan, and sometimes you have to take an unexpected turn with things, but don't let that get you down. Just carry on with it and you get there eventually. So the regular piece from Ben Ando from Revolution Trains, he's talking about people who get brand new models and they turn out to be faulty, and instead of contacting the company, just go straight to social media and complain about it. He does make a good point here about the quality control. You can't get 100%, so sometimes problems do arise, but it is a measure of the company if you give them a chance to resolve things. So next we have this layout feature, which is from Roger Marsh. It's called Small Layout, Big Impact, and it's highlighting a diesel layout which has been produced in a small space. So you start to get the measure of the layout here. It doesn't actually look that deep, but there has been a lot packed in here, and the weathering is absolutely superb. It looks very realistic, even down to things like this wagon here, which has got very good representation of rust on the side of it. Some of the things that have been pointed out by the magazine I also really like the boarded up and derelict house. You don't often see that on model railways, and it's really quite well done here. This spread here gives some more pictures where it really gives the flavour of this layout, the kind of grimy nature. And the feature continues with some more images, and which just goes to show what you can fit into a small space and end up having a really good looking model railway. And even this shot here on the final page has got a real close-up of the figures on this layout, and they do look really good, very well painted as well. I like this guy shoveling the coal here. You've got a little plan of the layout here, and that gives you an idea of just how small this is. Roger Marsh is pictured here. Well done, you've done a great job here. This looks really good. This is a regular feature of this magazine where they highlight a particular locomotive from the past. This one is the British Rail Class 9F. They go into a lot of detail about the real locomotive here. And what I like is that they always follow it up with something like this, where they take a model and do some modifications to it. So this is the Hornby Franco Crosti 9F, which they're making some modifications to. You can see that they've added some extra detail to the pony truck here. It looks really impressive. And the modifications go on to add so much extra detail onto this locomotive. This is a feature by George Dent again. It really goes to show how good his modelling skills are. And down here you've got the finished product, which really looks very good. I really like the weathering on that, and there's a lot of very nice detail, especially around this area here. Now we're onto the workbench, where we see what the other members of the staff of this magazine have been doing. So this spread talks about a layout that Chris Nevard is currently constructing, and it's called Culmstock. Now that's a word you're going to have to be very careful how you pronounce, because you could get that terribly wrong. But what's good about this is it shows it being built right from scratch. And as things progressed on this layout, you can see a lot more details being added. This building looks absolutely fantastic. He's weathered it really well, and in situ it looks really good. It's going to be obviously a centerpiece for this layout, and it does actually capture a lot of attention and looks really good. Next we have an update from Peter Marriott's Building Fowey, which is a kind of dockside railway. Now he's been at this for a long time. I think he's moved on from doing the water, which is great, and he's now doing some building work, and it does look really good. Completely scratch built as well by the looks of it. And this spread you can see more details of the building. It's really coming together very nicely, this layout. So now we've got a feature here about forced perspective. So that's when things in the background are intentionally at a smaller scale, and it gives the layout more depth. And here's a good example of that, where the buildings in the background up here are actually a lot smaller scale than the bridge in the foreground. You can see how this technique really builds to this layout here, especially this scene up here in the corner, where it does look as though it goes on to infinity. So there's a lot of really good tips here about how you can get the best out of your scenery. Things like the bridge and the river bank. the grass, and even the buildings up here as well. This has been done really well. It's a very eye-catching and stunning looking layout, a very good model, this one. The next layout featured is this one here from Kevin Mitchell, and again it's a small layout, so he's really gone to town with the grass. I like how it's between the rails here. There's some really nice cameos like these guys with a Mini. And behind the road roller is one of these mechanical horses just hiding in the bushes there. That's a really nice touch. They point out some of the features that they like from this model railway. The one I really like is the old lock gate from a disused canal, and that looks really quite cool. This spread here shows again how the grass has been applied quite liberally across this layout. It's maybe not for everybody, and this view here really shows how the greenery and the vegetation has worked so well in this layout. And as a final picture, which the longer you look at it, the more detail you find, like the little gear wheels in the hedge there. It's got some really nice touches, this layout. You can see the plan here. It is quite small, not much to it, but yet there's a lot of detail being put into here. Here's Kevin himself over here. Well done. This is really very nice. Okay, we're on to the review section now. So they open up with the Bachmann Class 25. Now, I've already said this before that I'm thinking maybe we've got too many Class 25s. There seems to be quite a lot on the market. So should you go for this one? It's certainly a thorough review. This one comes in at $199.95, and they're reviewing the two-tone green one, the D5282. What I like about Model Rail magazine is they always put in this fact file about the locomotive that they're reviewing. So here you can find out about the history of the Class 25, and it gives you some photographs of what it looked like in service. It has the technical specs here, and they conclude with a summary of the pros. It looks fantastic. It's got impressive level of detail, the performance, and the first class finish. And the cons, bright copper pickups. But I think that's something you could probably just paint over with a little bit of black paint and it should be fine. The final verdict is superb. So over the page, it's a 00 scale model of a gas turbine 18100. And this is a collaboration between Rails and Helgen to produce this model, coming in at £225. It's quite a niche model, but it certainly looks very detailed. Really good details on the bogies here. Again, the fact file of this really quite rare locomotive. And over here, the summary says that the pros are looks good, top-notch finish, varied lighting functions on DC or DCC, imposing weight, Great Western Railway train description display, and the cons is incorrect info in the brochure. Next up, we have the DAPL Class 59. This is coming in at £172.80 DCC ready, and it's an N-gauge model. It looks quite good, but I do think there's some problems with the finish on here, and when we look at the summary, it does say that Pro's overall looks, build quality and superb performance, but it does have a con of detail and livery errors. So the final verdict is a solid offering. So next over here we have the HST power cars and the Mark III stock for TT scale from Hornby. This price is $219.99, and it's calling out that with TT scale you can actually run longer trains in a smaller space compared to 00. So obviously you're going to be interested in something like this to run a longer train. So it says about the power cars, looks and fidelity, superb finish and good performance, and the cons, not a lot. Now I've said about this before, I don't know what not a lot means. I wish you would stop saying that. But anyway, the final verdict says excellent, and down here they have the match-in stock, which comes in at $37.99 each in TT scale. And they're calling out that the finish is top-notch and neatly applied stripes and information panels. So over the page, more TT stuff. This time it's the LNER A4462. This one comes in at $163.99, and we have Falcon number 60025. So in summary, they say that the pros here are the looks and finesse, the excellent finish and the good performance, and the cons, it says the fit of the cab is not perfect. But the final verdict is that it is lovely, and it's certainly a great colour. And over here, it's an EFE rail wagon. It's the bloater fish van. Always a funny name, that one. And the price here is $29.95 for this wagon. Pros, fine and impressive detail at a budget price, a useful prototype across the mid-20th century and excellent finish. And the cons, for the price, nothing of note. Anyway, the final verdict is super. So on this page we have some Rapido wagons, 5 and 7 plank open wagons, definitely a mainstay of British Railway modelling for many, many years. These ones very bright in the red and the green. Some great wheels there as well. They look pretty good. The pros are superb level of detail, first-rate finish, plenty of detail variations, important pre-BR prototype, and the cons, not a lot. Stop doing that. Anyway, final verdict is excellent. These come in, by the way, at $32.95 each. And over here we're back to Hornby. We have the R&H 88DS shunter wagon in 00 scale. This one comes in at $113.99. It has pros: overall looks and fidelity, good level of detail, superb finish and great value, but the cons: painted over windscreens, no working lights. And for me, I don't like this paint colour, but that's just a personal preference. It might be a nice model overall. And down here it's got a couple of Hornby wagons, the Rudd and the SAA wagons. So these come in at $25.49 for the Rudd and $19.99 for the other. So they've changed the present your case now to this full page one. It used to just be a small column. It's talking about the Lev 1 prototype rail car. Certainly a very interesting looking thing here. Almost looks like a bus. Probably was actually. And it details about this machine, the Leyland Experimental Vehicle number 1. The case here is that it would be a small prototype, ideally suited for smaller model railways. Very handy to have if you want to run some interesting passenger services. And it looks very unusual as well. So the back scene is Chris Lee's usual ranting page, but he's been cut down to just 2/3. He's had to curtail things and he's just talking about when the diesels arrived and they were in blue. And now Bachmann have got this model, so you can recreate this famous photograph that British Rail released way back in the day. So that's Model Rail for July 2024, number 326. Some really great layouts in this one, very inspiring. And they've got some reviews. There wasn't much in there that would really tempt me, to be honest. But the features on weathering, especially this locomotive here, and of course the layouts, means that this magazine has got a lot to offer the model railway enthusiast if you were wanting to buy this issue. Anyway, I hope you liked this review of the magazine. If you want to see more about the adverts, let me know in the comments below. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you want. But thanks for watching this review. That's it. See ya.